Hello everyone, welcome to today's video, which is how to find the potential value of a property. Now there's lots of different ways of doing this, and this isn't certainly to replace a surveyor's valuation for yourself or a home buyer's report or even for a bank, but it's to give you a good indication of what the price of a property may be. So when you're looking at doing viewings, when you're looking at placing offers, you can get a good indication as to whether it's worth progressing with that property, or if it's been wildly overvalued or maybe wildly undervalued. It could be a great opportunity. So a couple of different ways of doing this. We're going to be using Rightmove in this example, and there's two tabs that I'd recommend to have open on your desktop when you're doing it. The first is the main site. The second is house prices. So two reasons for this. One is because we're going to be looking at what's called on the market. So these are properties that are currently on the market for sale, residential properties. Then we're also going to be looking at sold house prices. So these are properties that have actually sold and what price they achieved and what date they sold for and what address they were. And then you can start to compare and get a little bit of an indication as to what the potential value might be based upon those two pieces of data. Now there's lots of other tools that simplify this approach, and I'll share some of those in future videos. But because we want to try and give you a very broad way of how to find this using free sites, free techniques, simple to use methods, that's why we're using Rightmove in this example. So Rightmove, choose your area and simply do your search. So a couple of different property types that you can do here, different criteria you can kind of set. I'm just going to give it a really broad price range. I'm going to stick to 3-bedroom properties. We're going to be looking at houses added to the site anytime, under offer. I would actually click that for this example. There's a couple of reasons why that can help, and I'll try and explain in this kind of video as well when we're looking at it. And then that's step one. So simply doing your initial search to try and see, okay, what types of properties are in that area. Step two then is looking at and saying, well, maybe you've got a property that you already know that you like, and then it's about comparing it to some other options like, okay, well, is that the same sort of price? Is that the right sort of price? Same process if you haven't found a property. It's just a case of it gives you a starting point. It gives you a baseline. So we're going to assume that you have a property here and you're trying to compare it to another option. And that property, we'll pick one in a second, but it's going to be within this ballpark, this price range, these property types, and they fit these criteria. I would then add some additional filters. So I'd take out new homes, buying schemes, and retirement homes. That's typically because those types of properties aren't quite as much of a fit for the average property investor, and they can sometimes skew the prices. So let's take a retirement home, for example. You might see that on the market for a percentage, and shared ownership as well, a percentage of what the actual property prices. So you could see a £300,000 property listed as £150,000 because you can buy 50% shared ownership, for example. That's really confusing when you're looking at price comparisons. You want to take those out, and then you can just look at more like for like properties in that search. So two ways you can kind of do this, whether it's list or whether it's map. That's personal preference. I like to do map because it gives me a closer indication as to the proximity and the location. When it comes to property, location really does matter. So I'm sure you've heard the old adage of location, location, location. From the town to the postcode to the street, sometimes even the position on the street can really make a big difference to the value of that property. Make it hard when you're trying to compare, but you really do need to consider that when you're looking at these properties. So we're going to show some examples here in this area of Chester. I'm going to narrow into this location in Hambridge. And first of all, for this first step, we're going to be looking at properties that are on the market for sale, and then try and get an indication as to what sort of price they might be. So this one here, 3-bedroom, semi-detached, Hartington Street. You can see a little bit of the pictures. You obviously can click on the property details to get more of an indication. And we're going to use this as our baseline kind of property. So condition looks pretty good. No major works needing to it. Nice tidy property on the market, 299,950, and it's sold subject to contract. So that gives us a nice guide. Now if we go back to this listing and we click on properties nearby it, so this one is on the market for 299,950, 3-bed semi. This one is on the market for 260, 3-bed semi. There's quite a difference, £40,000 kind of difference on these two properties, very close to each other. Could that be the street? Could that be the condition of the property? If we click on this one, this is also sold subject to contract. Looks okay again, no major works needing to it. Floor plan, which is helpful. So we've got a living room, kitchen, garden room, what looks like maybe smaller bedrooms upstairs compared to this one, which looks like a larger property. Yeah, you can see here. So living room, dining room. So just the floor plan and the footprint of the property already looks larger. So you go in reception hall, dining room, living room, kitchen. Here, straight into living room, a small garden room, kitchen, 3 bedrooms, a bathroom. Up here, you've got an extra space for a toilet, shower room, bedroom 1, 2, and 3. They look like quite large bedrooms. These look like quite small in comparison to bedrooms. So it might be that the floor plan and the footprint of these 2 property examples are slightly different, hence why this is a slightly larger price. But all we're trying to do here is just get a baseline. So the property that we're using as our example is 300,000, but it does vary for the similar type, 3-bedroom, semi-detached, to 260. And there's one here for 250, 275, 245, but it's a terrace, 270. It's hard sometimes when the pins are quite close together, and 290. Okay, so we can go further over here. We've got some end terraces, slightly lower value, 200, 300. And that one's an end of terrace, 300,000. So we've got one side of the equation, 300,000, and then on another side, 250. And if we click on this one here, already says in the details, cash buyers only, that I've just kind of spotted. So maybe there's something to consider there on the property. It's usually because it needs some work doing to it. Yeah, as you can see here from the pictures, looks like maybe they've even started some works doing to it. So it might be difficult for your average home buyer to get a mortgage on it because of the level of works needed. And this one is the kind of lower price point that we've seen. So as a guide, properties that are on the market, 3 bedrooms, semi-detached, anywhere from sort of 250 to 300,000 seems about right. And even these ones, using our example, 300,000, which is the top end, has still got a sale agreed on it. Now it's hard to know at this point what that property sale agreed has been for. Could be for exactly the right price, 300,000 that's on the market for. Maybe it's even slightly higher. Could have been super competitive, bid over the price, or slightly lower. It's hard to know, but we're just trying to get a baseline. So if we're trying to see, okay, well, this property here is 300, and maybe we're looking at a brand new opportunity, it's just come on the market, and it's come on the market for 275, is that under or overvalued? And then next up, we're going to be looking at sold house prices. So we can do the same here. This is a part of Chester called Hambridge, and that's where these properties, as the examples, were shown from. This area only, all years. I would certainly look to kind of narrow this down in a second. Last 1 year, they're going to be the most accurate. Property that sold in the last couple of months, way more valuable for information than a property that sold 10 years ago, 5 years ago. More closely aligned, let's say, with the criteria that we're looking at. Property types, we're looking at semi-detached, and tenures. So is it a freehold or leasehold? Now at this stage, we don't know if the example properties we're looking at are freehold or leasehold, so I'd keep that open. Years, I'd keep broad, and area, I'd keep broad at the moment, because we're looking already at quite a broad area of Hambridge. And so they've got 5 properties sold all years, this area, that are semi-detached, which seems a bit unusual. Seems like there should be more properties kind of showing in that area. And that can certainly be the case. Maybe it's because for whatever reason, the way in which Rightmove has identified some of the latest sold house price history from the land registry, it's showing up slightly different in our search. So if that's the case, when you do a search, if you've not got much criteria, you can always adjust it. So let's say all property types. Now it's giving us 18 properties. And then let's say last year, and it's narrowed down to kind of one property, which is a 3-bedroom flat. Interesting, sold recently, 205,000. gives us a starting point. It's not a 3-bedroom semi, but the fact that it's a 3-bedroom flat, I'd probably say that's on the lower end of the price range, and we want to try and find some closer size properties for this example. 2-bedroom semi-detached, last 2 years, so it goes back a little bit longer in terms of timeline, but a little bit more closer in terms of the property types. Might need to go back further to find similar types. 3-bed terrace, 3-bed terrace. So in this particular search, I'm not finding loads of sold house price history data. Now, there might be some data there that exists that the estate agent or the surveyor is able to get access to, that's sold properties that don't show on the land registry just yet, or have just been sale agreed currently by the agent. And that's not going to show in a traditional search. So you can certainly call up agents, try and get an indication of what they think house prices are going to be at for that type of property in that area. But because it's not on this search, I'm not going to kind of dwell too much on that type of data point, and I'm simply going to refer back and divert back to properties that are on the market. If you have sold house price history, great, more accurate. You know what those properties sold for, you know when, you know what type of property, how close it was to the location you're looking at. That's really helpful. Most surveyors, if not all surveyors, are going to use that information as their default. But if that isn't available because there's just not many comparisons, then it falls back to properties that are on the market. And we've got a rough guide here of anywhere from 250 to 300,000. So it's not scientific, it's not perfect, it's not going to narrow you down to the exact pound and penny of what that price is worth. But if you're trying to get a good guide on, well, is this a good property to go and view? Or is this a good property to maybe offer on? This is a great starting point. Hope that helps. Hope it gives you an indication of how typically to try and get a value of a property. And if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask, and look forward to helping you in the next video. Take care.